Hey guys, so today's video is going to be all about older palettes that I'm still interested in, older palettes that I still want. There's always been a ton of hype, especially the past few years, around eyeshadow palettes. We've always seen a ton being released, and I think one of the mainstream brands, Colourpop, has really put it in place into having every other brand keep up with the newest of the new, the best of the best. But I just wanted to kind of talk about, some of the palettes that I've literally had my eye on for the past year, even maybe 2 years. I can't recall exactly when all of these palettes released, but there's a lot of them, some colorful, some pretty neutral as well, so there's a good mix of eyeshadow palettes. There might only be one or two that have been released in this past year, but like I said, most of them are much older. They haven't been released in 2021, I know that. So I guess let's just hop into the video and we can start talking about all the palettes that I still want. So the first one, and I've been literally obsessed with this palette since it first came out on the market. It is from Natasha Denona. It's the Metropolis palette. Man, I just love that color story, and I know there is a brand that does a fantastic dupe of that palette specifically, but there's just something about the Natasha Denona formula that I'm literally obsessed with. I have all of her midi sized palettes and these eyeshadow pans that are in the Metropolis are the same size as the midi. So I don't know, I'm almost getting that collector's type of guilt of not owning it, but I just love the color story too. I love greens. There's some beautiful blues, especially in the mattes, some golds as well. So it's just an overall really thought out, really well loved palette in the community as well. So that is definitely one that I've had my eye on since the day it came out. It's just that price point is high up there. I think it's about $129. I keep putting it off and putting it off, but one of these days I'll end up breaking down and I'll buy it. Okay, next up I have a few from Colourpop that I've been eyeing up for a while now, and I actually already made a Colourpop purchase. It'll be in one of my hauls, so I'll link it up here if I remember. If you guys want to check it out, you can. But there are a few palettes that I did not pick up that have been an older release of Colourpop's. They're all still available from the last time I checked. It's the Nude Mood palette, the Blush Crush palette, and the Stone Cold Fox. I don't know why I'm liking the really neutrals, especially the 9pan palettes that Colourpop releases, but they do a great job. I know some people haven't liked the Blush Crush formula, but I don't know. I mean, they're so cheap. If I don't like it, it's not like purchasing a Natasha Denona palette and not liking it, So part of me really wants to break down and buy the two 9pans and that Stone Cold Fox palette. Those shimmers look so pretty, and it's nice to just have a few larger palettes, especially one that is more cool toned leaning. I don't have a large cool tone palette in my collection at all that I can think of, so I feel like that would be a good addition to my collection and one that I've been eyeing since it came out as well. Alright, another one, I've been seeing it on Sephora and it's been in and out of stock for quite a while. It's the Artist Couture Supreme Nudes palette. First off, that packaging is so stinking pretty. I love the packaging that Artist Couture has been coming out with. They actually just released a new palette that looks stunning. It's like these pretty pastel shades, but bringing it back to the Supreme Nudes palette, I don't know what it is that I like about that one. It really reminds me of one of my favorite palettes ever. It's from Kelly Cosmetics. It's her Bronze palette. I love that palette. The shimmers in there are subpar, but the actual color story I really like. Same with the Artist Artist Couture palette, and it has that really pretty like khaki green shade that I'm just literally so obsessed with. So that is another one on my list that has had my attention for quite a while. Okay, another neutral palette, and again, I don't know why I like it because I'm sure I can dupe it in my collection 10 times over. It's the Too Faced Born This Way Natural Nudes palette. I like the photos that the company released when they first released the palette, but one of my friends over on Instagram purchased it. She accidentally purchased it. She didn't want it, and she posted those photos of that palette on Instagram, and I have been drooling over it since I saw it. The shimmers look so foiled and so pretty, and it looks like all of the mattes and all the shades in the palette are more of like a blush leaning tone instead of being like a pure brown tone. So that's definitely another one that's been on my radar. I think if I can end up finding it on sale sometime soon, or you know, during the Sephora VIP sale, I might pick it up. But you know, I just have so many palettes in my collection, especially a ton of neutral palettes. It's hard to find room to add another one in your collection. But yes, that has definitely been one that I have had my eye on since it released. So another one I really liked, and I've noticed a pattern of me liking these types of palettes. Another one that's been on my radar is the Huda Beauty Nude Obsessions palettes, the little 9-pan ones she created, but specifically the light shade. I don't know what it is about this palette. Again, I think it's those like purpley pink shimmers in it that I really like. My heart skips a beat every time I see it. Not only that, all of the matte shades in the palette don't go super dark. So, you know, it's a palette that you can't add a ton of depth on the eyes, and I almost like that in a way. And there's a couple other palettes on my list that have the same tonal range or depth, or lack of depth, I should say, kind of like that, the light Nude Obsessions palette. Yeah, so there's no like deep matte shade to help with like adding depth to an eye look. It's very clearly made for someone with very light pale skin, and I kind of am obsessed with that. I kind of like all those really light transition shades, especially if I just want to go with, you know, something really light on the eyes and then just a wash of shimmer all over. Like, I kind of love that look so much recently, especially now that it's getting like kind of nicer out. It's getting, you know, the weather has been 70s here, so I'm just really feeling that type of vibe in my makeup. So that one has definitely been on my radar. I think if it also goes on sale, I'll end up picking it up. Also, on like another note to that palette, Makeup Revolution has a line that's kind of supposed to dupe this palette, and I almost want to pick that one up instead, just because it's like $9 instead of 20 something. So I don't know, we'll see. I'll have it on the back burner and see how I feel in the future. But yes, that is definitely a palette that has been on my list for quite a while. Another one, and it's almost fairly recent, from another YouTuber, it's the Roen 1111 palette. It's just a little quad, but again, it's those really like pretty pinky shimmery tones, and I'm just loving shimmery toned palettes. Like, no mattes in them, you know, they're beautiful topper shades, all over the lid type of shades. They're just really easy one and done type of shadows, and there's just so many days throughout the year that I just want something that easy. I don't want to take a lot of time into doing my makeup. So I really kind of like how, you know, cut down and simplified a palette like that is. It is really expensive, like really expensive for a quad, and I think that's the only thing that's been keeping me from buying it. unfortunately. The next palettes on my list are from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and they're from the Norvina collection, specifically just the second, third, and fourth volumes. The fourth volume, when it came out, I literally died. It's the perfect pinky neutral palette, and I still to this day love it, but specifically that like bright lime yellow type of color. Every time I look at that palette, I just see that one shade and it makes me want to buy the whole palette, but for $64, I can't do it. The only time I would ever buy any of these palettes, I think, is if they went on sale, or, you know, if I did some good overtime and could afford to buy, you know, another eyeshadow palette to my collection when I really don't need any more. But yeah, and it's the same with the second and the third volumes. I think the third one is that like orange and green vibe, and I love greens. I love greens. There's so many lime and bright greens, and I'm not even looking at the shimmers in those palettes. It's specifically the mattes. All the mattes in those three palettes like take my breath away. So that volume 3 is that orange and green one, and the volume 2 is the blue and green one. And again, those blue mattes in that palette, they're just so freaking pretty. I die every time I look at it, but again, for that $60-some price point, I just cannot, I can't press purchase. Like it physically makes me ill to purchase it. And you know, I'm still kind of wishy-washy about Norvina. That whole thing that happened a year or so ago just put a bad taste in my mouth. Not to mention, I know a lot of people have had mixed feelings on these palettes, so it kind of makes me hesitant to purchase them. But yeah, those have been 3 that I've just been secretly wanting on the inside for the longest time. I do think if they would end up becoming on sale, and if I thought the price would be worth it at that point, yeah, I probably would end up buying them, because I do like those matte colors. They're so pretty. So the next brand I'm going to talk about, I have 2 from this brand. It's from the brand September Rose, and I just went on their site again to see how much these palettes are, and they're actually like a really good price. So part of me is like, absolutely, next paycheck, I'm buying both of them. So they are the Slush palette, the original Slush palette. I think they have a Slush too. I'm talking about the original Slush palette. And then their Brew palette. The Brew palette is like the perfect neutral color. I'm pretty sure September Rose is a black owned company, black owned and women owned. So this is a great company to support, you know, if you're wanting to look into, you know, black owned businesses to support and help them. You know, it's also a small company as well. Every time I see that Brew palette, I'm like, those are the chocolatiest, beautiful, yummiest, like deep, sensual browns. And I'm like, I live for it every time I see it. And then the Slush palette is like the perfect rainbow palette. Like, you don't need another rainbow palette if you have the Slush palette. So that's basically the reason why I want that. So I really do think, like, if I buy anything next, it's going to be those 2 palettes. Like, they're so pretty looking. They are just so pretty. Okay, next one is actually a fairly recent release. It didn't release in 2021. I actually think it released maybe in around October, but it's from the brand Glamlite, and it's their Ice Cream or Ice Cream Dream palette. Oh, first off, it's adorable. Glamlite has been doing the cutest themed palettes recently, and that one just took my breath away when I saw the inside. They're beautiful pastel shades, and I'm really, really loving the pastel mattes inside it. I love the shimmers too, but I'm really loving the mattes inside that one. And I don't have a lot of pastels in my collection. You know, a lot of them are very, very like dark, deep colors. You know, there's no mid-tone shades, there's no very light shades, so I do think my collection could benefit from a palette like the Ice Cream Dream, which is why it's been on my mind for so long, basically since it released. So 2 more palettes from another brand. The brand is Sigma, and the 2 palettes that I've been literally obsessing with from the second I saw them release is the Enchanted palette and the Corderosa. That Corderosa palette is like what Modern Renaissance from ABH redone would look like to me, and I love it. I love the little like flower imprints they have in some of their shades. And then the Enchanted palette has those beautiful like green shades in there. They have some stunning mauves in there, and I just love them both. They're kind of expensive. I think they're around like $49 each. And again, that's the only reason that has stopped me from buying those, but I know that they would be really loved if I did have them in my collection right now. Next one is kind of odd because I know it's not, or I believe it's not listed as an actual eyeshadow palette. I think it's just like a shade palette or a shadow and face palette. It's from Linda Hallberg and it's her Spectral palette. Again, it has almost those like pastel shades in it. Like there's this beautiful like spring pink shade that I adore. This beautiful green, like sea foamy green shade. And again, I just love it. Linda Hallberg again is a very small indie brand, and I love supporting my indie brands the most. So that is definitely another palette in my mind that I have loved for a long time. Just never bit the bullet to purchase it. So I have 2 palettes from Juvia's Place that I really want. They're both part of the 6-pan palette collection that they've released. The most recent, the one is the taupe, and the other one is just like their nude one. I believe it's called Nude. I'll have pictures of everything up so you'll see them here somewhere. Yeah, again, I love taupes. I love those cool tones, so that's definitely, you know, a palette that I would want, and I'd much rather purchase like a 6-pan palette than like a 50-pan. So that's why they intrigue me a lot. And then again, that Nude palette, which is similar to the Huda Beauty one that I was talking about, there's not a lot of depth within that palette, but it's just one of those palettes that's really easy to throw on, and it's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna look odd. Like it's, what am I trying to say? Easy palette to have in your collection when you don't have time or you don't want to put time into your makeup. You can just throw, you know, a transition shade and a shimmer on, and that be it. You know, you don't have to worry about blending a ton of, you know, deepening shades to make your eyeshadow look, you know, like it took you a while. So I don't know, those 2 I really like. Again, they're kind of high price for a 6-pan palette. Their 9-pan palettes are really close in price range. So I don't know. I know Juvia's Place has a ton of sales, so maybe I'll wait for a sale. They also have codes you can use, so I think I just have to do some math, but at some point I'm sure they'll end up in my collection too. All right, last but not least, the 20th palette that I've had my eyes on for a long time, an old palette that I still want desperately, is from Midas Cosmetics, and it's the Flower Bomb palette. This is the same as like the Ice Cream Dream palette. It has these beautiful pastel type of shades, and now that we're getting into springtime, I keep seeing, you know, these beautiful palettes that are being released that have springy shades like I was talking about earlier in this video. The Artist Couture palette just released a pastel springy type of palette, and As much as I love that one, I think I still want the Flower Bomb palette just a little bit more. There's something about a palette that's based off of flowers. I don't know, I just love it, and that's definitely another one that I've been eyeing for a long time now. That is everything, you guys. That is all 20 palettes that I have been eyeing. They're all old palettes. Like I said, they're at least a year old. Maybe one or two of them aren't as old as the rest, but I love them all. I've been dying for them all, and sometimes it's nice to recall and remember that there are beautiful palettes that have been out for a long time that are just as good as the ones that are being released now, and they might be cheaper because they are considered, you know, an older release. Yeah, I think it was a good mix. I think I had a good mix of neutrals and colored palettes. There are other palettes that I've had my eyes on, but they're more recent releases, so maybe I could do like a little video on that as well. If you want to see it, that'd be fun. But yeah, like I said, that's everything. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I'd love to continue on this type of video, you know, do it with like what old makeup I've been having my eyes on, or like older blushes that I've been having my eye on, etc. Older bronzers. You know, we could just continue it down the line to lip products, etc. So let me know what you think. I hope you liked this video. Please subscribe, and if you do, thank you. Follow me on Instagram. I'll leave everything down in the description bar for you that was talked about today in this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.